Hi guys, welcome at Refect. Today we're gonna talk about the future of gaming with our very special guest, Seth Pyrzynski, an award-winning neurodiverse global gaming professional, Web3 strategy and innovation executive, and I'm really thankful to have you here. Thank you for your time, and I'm curious about the discussion and where it leads us in the end of the day. Do you have a couple of words for our audience or anything you want to share at the beginning of the podcast?
Yeah. First of all, Kevin, thanks so much for asking me to be a part of this. I feel that inside of this new space that we're in, Web3 and the innovation of blockchain technologies, as we move towards mass adoption, that the connections between the community are just getting stronger and stronger. I've never been so close to the source as I've been, and I have been supported and encouraged, and I found the same enthusiasm across the whole spectrum and around the world. It's an amazing time to be alive and to be focused on the future. I'm a gaming professional, have been in gaming for years. Humbly and thankfully, I don't think that when I first started off in my career that gaming was supposed to be a professional career. But I've had an opportunity to produce Activision and Blizzard's E3 booth for 5 years in my career. Have worked on Call of Duty Championships, which was the first precursor to Call of Duty World League, and then Call of Duty League, which is the one that's now. Had worked with an amazing team, and we helped develop like what does this look like for the for a consumer in the crowd as well as those in broadcast. Worked at Riot Games in Berlin. For 3 years, helped to develop the studio that you see today for the LEC. That studio is used as the English language feed for Worlds Now. So it's rather cool every year. It's such a prestigious event to be able to see the studio come to life with some of the best talent in casting in esports. I joined Blizzard for a bit, looking to work with those storied franchises, Hearthstone, World of Warcraft. I knew that Warcraft 3 was coming back out. I knew Diablo 4 was coming, so it was a really exciting time to be there. And now I'm at that cross section of where my gaming had taken me to now where Web3 goes, and where it goes, we all go. And it's a convergence of technology. It's a convergence of artists and creatives and people who take chances and dreamers. And I'm here for it all.
Amazing, love it. Thank you for the introduction. I'm curious about two things right now. Do you speak German? Because you worked in Germany.
I can say genau.
Okay, all good. Just want to try, you know. And
There was a beginning time I was taking classes at the same time that I was being immersed into Riot's culture, and it was a challenge to do both at the same time. We were in an international office. I learned to communicate with my partners who were German. Alex Prustel with Skyline TV, Aga, and then the entire crew. But we did that through hard work.
mhm.
We did that through working together and understanding and building a trust and rapport. But the language didn't pose a barrier.
Okay, okay. Um, yeah, actually, what I think would be really interesting for the people listening today is what challenges did you have to overcome to actually move from the regular gaming industry towards the Web3 space, to the play to earn space, and so on? What was difficult?
Interesting. I would ask, and I would ask anybody, what was the challenge? Because the biggest challenge was probably believing. I'd been watching for quite some time, but let me pull back for a sec. So it was the winter of Doge, and Doge was on the rise, and it started there. It started there to where there was a full realization that culturally, the communication stack was changing. Okay, there had been layers and layers and layers of this happening for years, but maybe in different spheres where it was more prevalent. Let's say, Facebook and politics dominated meme culture for a bit. If that was where this source was coming from. But when you start to look at text messages, and you look at hashtags, and you look at emojis, and you look at memes, you start to realize that that's the new social construct, okay? And it can't be ignored. You can't say, well, I can talk like this to, my main source of communication is going to be through text messages 90% of the time. You can't say, well, we don't use that as a normal form of communication when it truly is. And so when we went from Doge, and it was the whole campaign, we flowed naturally into the summer of PFPs. And when the summer of PFPs came, and I started seeing these PFPs pop up that were tagged to highly innovative technologies, and they were innovations on the blockchain, I dove in. As one would do. Matthew Ball's metaverse primer was one of the beginning places. Kathy Hackle, fantastic, hostess to the opening of this world, and the OpenSea Manifesto was one where I started. And you start reading all these things that you can mint a non-fungible token based on a real world asset that you can then provide value, and it could be worth, and it could be traded as secondary, and all this stuff. And it was just like, I think as everybody, my mind was blown. And to say, was it difficult? My answer is it wasn't difficult to move into that flow state, because the flow state was a need to learn more, to read, to ask questions, to understand, and to connect. And as I did that, somebody was there for me each step of the way. Do this, get a .eth address. Why? Didn't know at that point in time. Did, and followed the steps from somebody who was on Twitter. Be careful where your sources are, of course, but somebody that was on Twitter who had said, do this, and gave the instructions. Well, I did. I read about it. I then dove into it, and I was like, this is amazing. Was airdropped 10,000 US dollars worth of tokens not too long. And then you start to see the value proposition of proof of participation, and then you giving to the community back the value or a percentage of what was gained through this, this transference or this transactional kind of relationship. I invest in you, you invest in me, rather than I invest in you, Web 2, and you gain all of the profits, and then you own all of my stuff in perpetuity. And I have to now figure out some bizarre way of, removing all my stuff from Facebook or whatever the case. So it wasn't really necessarily hard, but I couldn't keep up with the wants to learn, to dive into the information as much as I could. And I still, to this day, I take phone calls to learn and to discover, because if I'm only in client activation and pitch mode, I'm a little bit further away from the source. And that source is creators and innovators who are taking ideas and turning them over. But this is a space where you have to learn by doing. And then it's the doing that gives you the ability to then share that experience with others and maybe be a leader if that's where they look to you. But I think that even in this space, to be a leader, you have to always want to discover, and you have to be open for that. To get where I was in quote unquote life and a career was hard. Mm-hmm. There could have been many wrong turns. There is a lot of faith, and there was a lot of belief in what I was doing was the thing to do. Starting off and staying longer, or being the last one to leave, and thinking that you have the right way that a thing is done, and you'll apply more to doing that than others, and nobody's even looking. I mean, there are times no one was looking. I mean, I was there by myself, and I was, late at an event or a production or a broadcast, and I was cleaning up something or whatever the case is, and nobody was looking. But each one of those decisions led me in a path. So the career was hard. The transfer over into Web3 was, it's a discover every day. I mean, and there's foundations that I bring to it, but it wasn't necessarily easy. The community welcomed, as they do, with open arms. And I learn every day. I learn from my community and my network, and then I would say what my alpha is. I wasn't around when there was only 60 people on NFT Twitter. Good for them. Great for them. What a difference a year makes. But I do connect with Jason, Emily, yourself, Diego, and I learn from them every day. And that for me is my alpha. And that when I could share is my alpha. And I think that it's important for people to find that themselves. I hope I answered the question. I know I went a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, no, perfect. Definitely. You said a few names. Most of them I know from LinkedIn as well. So probably, if it's okay, I will ask them. I will just tag them because I'm sure they will be very grateful for your recommendation here. Very interesting insights, by the way. Reminds me of the saying like fail fast, learn fast, basically. In Web3, there are no true experts yet, at least most people state that, right? Because it's so extremely fast moving, you actually can't really keep track of every innovation or every project which is gonna launch next week. And it's just a very interesting space to be in. One question which is a little bit more related to your actual gaming background. A really new or a very interesting phenomenon is like play to earn. So you can play on the internet within the crypto space and earn tokens or NFTs or whatsoever. What's your take on that? Where do you think are we heading?
It's an interesting topic because so first, I love gaming. I've been a gamer since Atari 2600 came out, and then I shared earlier. At one point in time, I was told to get a real job, and I was building Activision's booth, and the budget was like not millions of dollars, and I was like, oh, that's strange take on things. But yeah, we weren't supposed to, I don't know that we were supposed to be here. I saw it at one point in time, and I thought that the foundations of gaming are much stronger than even social media, which was dominating at the time. But when you looked at gaming, it was almost like hip hop in a sense, to where hip hop had MCs and breakers and DJs, and gaming had the same thing. We had streamers, and we had professionals, and we had hosts, and we had casters. And then, you start to look at it, and because there's proliferation of gaming into every aspect of everybody's life, I was like, that's a foundation that is way stronger than just social media. Because for me, playing Halo, that was social for me. That's how I talked to my brothers. That's how I talked to my friends. That's how we connected. So when when play to earn gaming came out, what first dropped for me was Axie Infinity, Guild of Guardians. You start to branch out around there. So Immutable X was big, and it was whoa. So dove in, looked at it and was like, this is amazing. Zed Run was out. There was, you could breed, and you could take two assets and you could breed them, and you would get an opportunity to get something rare. It was mind blowing. And then I certainly read the articles in the beginning of how in the pandemic, Axie Infinity had lifted up a whole continent or country, to where it just basically said, here is your earnings. And that was super interesting. And it still is, and it has some challenges. Now you go to the other side to where it flips down, and you look at the joy of gaming, and then there's that opportunity. And I won't take the opportunity away from anyone to be able to do what they can in order to earn inside of the space. But then you look at like what is gaming, and why is it important? And I think that there is a rounding off of those edges, and they all will exist inside of their own ecosphere. I think that as it is now, play to earn gaming is not perfect, but I don't take the negative stance on it as if it's ruining gaming. I don't think that the answer for what it will be has been answered. Okay. CSGO has skins for sale, has had skins for sale on a marketplace for the longest time. NFT. Oh my God, don't do that. But it's, CSGO has been selling skins for the longest time. There's the middle ground there, but when you look at the argument from gamers, and I know I'm weaving on this, but just, if you will follow, you look at the argument from gamers, you had tokenomics dropped into the marketplace stating that they were going to drop a AAA game in a period of time that had never been done before without a developer on their team. Okay. So game development is difficult, very difficult. And when you make those claims, your developers are going to be suspect, and then, you drop a token, it now is crypto, it's crypto first, it's token first. And then you look to retrograde a game, and the game that you build is a staking mechanic. And then it doesn't look as great. And I've seen way more Unreal Engine demos with test rigs running around as a proof of a game. And I'm like, we all know that that's not the game. Like, or if you don't know, that's not a game, that's just a test. And, actually fusing those two worlds together with high fidelity NFTs, tokenomics is going to be a little bit more difficult. Now, when I look at Meta Hero, I'm going to say Meta Hero, but I don't think it's Meta Hero. Meta Engine. Oh no, not G-Funk's project or Beanie Maxi's project, but Meta Engine, which is originally from Hero Engine. When I see this technology and I see that team active in this space, I now see a solid platform for somebody to build MMORPGs. When I see what Improbable is doing with their scavenger test demos and their Alexa test with 1,500 people at one time with the capacity to go up to 10,000 at one time on one server with high fidelity, things get interesting. When I see Theorycraft and Joe Tung and his team inside of the space, I get interested. I think what Mythical is doing right now is fantastic. I think that what the Sandbox is doing for creators and gaming is fantastic. And then, when, you move into these worlds and what these world experiences are, when you look at the Sandbox and you look at Decentraland, and these are organizations that are dedicated to the user-generated communities. They're dedicated to open worlds, and they're built on the blockchain. And so it as P2E gaming is, I'm going to say, is more of like a mechanic, like mobile gaming. And now, and as much as I have fun playing mobile games, and then I have to be honest in a second. I'll tell you in one moment. But as much as I love mobile games, if I get a mobile game, generally in the first beginning of it, and it's not all of them, I'm going to spend $120 on some crystals, some coins, some gas for a tractor or something. And, I want to say, Zed Run was super interesting, an expensive game to get into. I think I ran 3 races. And then, I could have bought the latest Call of Duty, and I could have bought a new console for that. But I wouldn't trade out the experience, because you have to touch these things. You have to feel them. And so, there's some things that need to be shaken off from play to earn gaming, but I don't see it as such a negative in the space. So one, Crypto Raiders I play. I love to see the little people move and do their thing. It's interesting, but it has me in the same way that, putting gas in my tractor for right now so far. But when you look at what Axie is going to do by moving into this new model that allows for people to be able to play the game without that investment, that's where some of these first steps happen. And then, I think that there's something else too, and I know this is not in play to earn gaming, but Period Dot that's coming out from Niantic with augmented reality is super cool. So, one of the things about this space is there's this convergence of technologies. And I know that we were going to touch on XR, AR, and VR. It's all connected. And, XR with Lux Machina and what they did on The Mandalorian is super dope. How does that have anything to do with gaming? Well, it's based on Unreal Engine, in-camera VFX. Unreal Engine really was one of the biggest proponents of this, with Tim Sweeney and their digital twins, their granting of land to, I believe it was North Carolina, and then giving, children during the pandemic the tools to be able to learn in the same way that they played was really a game changer. Oh, and it's for free. Take it. We'll worry about that. We'll worry about that later. And so it really is this convergence of technologies with augmented reality. VR has a huge place. But right now, VR is like, as much as it's a community experience, it's a solo experience, to where once our wearables or our glasses, we start to unlock this hyperkinetic world that will end up fusing our first and our second screen with our physical experience. And when that happens, I think that there's some really interesting things that'll take place. I don't mind play to earn gaming. But I think that it has some things to solve, and I'm looking forward to those challenges being solved by the game developers and those who balance gaming to make sure that the aspect of gaming is not that is fun is not overtaken by a need to just have the shortest path between A and B to profit.
Yeah,
and if that becomes the scenario for the individual player, then it really brings that bar down.
Yeah, probably that's also the issue at the same time what the community has. Yeah, because NFTs, everyone knows that they're worth hundreds of thousands of dollars at some point, and that's a bad image. Basically, it's pure speculation. There's nothing like fun in it, it gets serious at that point of time, probably for most people, because it's an unknown aspect. Yeah, you don't know that yet. Most people, not all, but most people don't like going out of their comfort zone. And if they suddenly have to wrap their head around wallets, maybe NFTs, crypto, like maybe they would rather stick to yeah, the in-app purchases you just mentioned before, because they know it yet. So maybe it just takes time, and that I
Well,
don't know.
that's it. That's what all of this. That's what all of this is. Like this, our conversation. You mentioned. We mentioned people. Diego's conversations that he has. It's about the mass adoption of Web3 and blockchain technologies, and it's about removing the barrier. So we do that through our efforts through brand marketing and the rituals that they have to go through. We go through immersions, Web3 immersions to familiarize with these new exotic rituals. And then we show best practices, like what is the best enterprise crypto solution. Ledger has a fantastic one. And so, as these organizations move into this space and say, I'd love to, mint an NFT. Well, now I have cryptocurrency coming in and I'm regulated by the government and I have to pay taxes. I need to have the right foundation inside of my financial department. So we go through that as well. But, on the front lines, from NFTs to blockchain gaming and collectibles, and whether it's Spider-Man or whether it's Batman or whether it's a T-shirt or all of these things are set up to be able to normalize these new technologies. And I think that once we get through that aspect, like Coinbase, NFT, fantastic example, millions of wallets, super cool. It has an aspect that's more like social media, and then it rewards likes and it rewards, influencers. Super cool. And once we get through that normalization period, I think that's when you'll see more, innovators, but like communities are going to grow. Like what Murat Pak is doing right now is on a completely different level than, I don't know if it's Hangry Hippos or whatever the newest creature version of some derivative of Bored Apes. But, there's always going to be those like kind of deeper diving, communities. Neo Tokyo is one that is blown people's minds. And I'm here for all that. What Artifact is doing and Benoit and Nike is doing is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, sorry, definitely going in a very interesting direction right now, especially since last year. As everyone knows, we gained a lot of traction within the metaverse and NFT space. I think that's probably going to help the innovation factor here. One thing I mentioned before our talk is about the franchise systems. There are a lot of companies popping up which offer their concepts basically for other entrepreneurs to launch their own VR, AR, XR, whatsoever game or company or location basically, where people can just go like to a cinema or something like that, put on their VR headsets and start playing a shooter like Call of Duty or whatsoever. What do you think about that?
So there's a couple of different, it brings up a couple of different spaces. So one, what you're seeing now, which I love, is you're seeing either native blockchain building out platforms for those who need to take advantage of it without having to build it themselves. So somebody wants to produce a documentation, they're not going to build the computer. So you've got experts in blockchain who are building out infrastructure that it makes it easier for people to drop onto and then build what they build best, whether it's game experience, virtual or other. You would also then have gaming endemic builders who are building so that blockchain can come into that space and they don't have to build out the mechanics of the game and the architecture and they will end up making these tools available to those communities. One of the other thing that you had touched upon is these virtual worlds and who they benefit. And so, we look at, you look at open, closed, walled, walled gardens, so you have your Fortnites, you have your Robloxes, you have your Decentralands, you have your sandbox, and those are great experiences with amazing communities, thriving user-generated communities. And then you have experiences to where maybe you need to be focused. Maybe you want the fidelity to be a little bit more. Maybe you're looking to show proof of concept by having a breakout room where somebody can use a Ready Player Me avatar and go into a world, and you don't want someone to have to figure out all the coding and all of that. So there are solutions for that, and they're fantastic. Mona.gallery is one of my favorites. Oncyber.io is another one of my favorites. And then Sequin World is one of my favorites. I think there's some spaces as places or spaces as well. You would have seen, I think Reese Witherspoon was in an article and you saw her avatars walk by. What starts to happen is once you collect all of these NFTs, the phone is a horrible place to be able to showcase it. Every realm is inside of this space as a real estate developer. And then if there's real estate developers are out there, should you be inside of the, inside of the metaverse? The answer is the same thing for the brands. If you don't know why you should be there, then you shouldn't, not yet.
Yeah.
Figure the why first and then build, because those metrics will never right now stack up to show you on a ledger that this equaled that and you have your return. It should be looked at as a tapestry, that you are here and inside of press, inside of Twitter, inside of these spaces that people are, talking about you. Artifact is a great example. But when you have these virtual spaces, you then get to stand up, your world. And right now that's a closed world in a sense. But you'll be able to take this world and be able to slot it into this bigger world once interoperability comes into place. I don't know who's solving that. I know there's a lot of folks working on it. I know it's very difficult, but I think that when I look at interoperability, I look at it in this way. I look for solutions that will allow me to bring to the greatest amount of my community access to my wearables, my goods, and my services. And so if I have to, rig that myself or an avatar partnership, Ready Player Me, right off the bat, 1,800 worlds and more. They have a strong foundation. I love it. Genies, same thing. You've got Iger from Disney there. I think they're going to make it. And so when you look at that, partnerships, wearables, and the ability to be in all those worlds, so now I have my brand presence that I'm looking for. And so when I would look at a world, I would look at portals, hyperlinks, and other ways to go in and out of somebody else's existing world through a hyperlink that just brings me to another tab that's native to the screen that they're on. And if I can do that, I could go from Decentraland to Sequin World, and then I could go back to Decentraland and be inside of an open community. You can go bounce to bounce to bounce. And so, the ability now to create interoperability, I think, is really up to the brand to create it themselves, so that the most amount of people have access to their goods. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's where the fun becomes, is how do we launch a wearable, and then how can we end up getting it to the most amount of people, and then once it's with them, with the community, what will they do with it? And then that's where you step back and you watch the community start to create and start to build for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Where's their value proposition, right? That's something we have seen the last couple of months, that NFTs need more utility than ever before, basically, because more people demand for that. Um, I'm What I definitely agree on is that we need interoperability between different blockchains, because if you buy an NFT on Ethereum, you want to have it on wherever within seconds, ideally, without even knowing that you just switch the blockchain in best case. What could be really interesting though is what you just said about switching metaverses, like as a figure. I'm not quite sure how that will work or could work from a technical standpoint, but that would be really amazing if something like that works out.
Right now, I mean, the way I would do this, it would be to look for the worlds that allow you to insert hyperlinks into your space. So, for example, Decentraland allows you to have hyperlinks, and you can click on them, and then it'll pop up the next tab. If I'm native to browser, which is, there's been the whole argument of we've gone back to the 1990s with graphics because low polygon counts, and it was all like, no, it's a highly creative stylistic choice because the technology is in browser for thousands of people to be inside of one world, and there's true innovation happening. So I hear the argument. It's not a blind spot for me, but I don't see it in the same right. And that's not really the point for me, because as you look at any of these worlds, you will see low polygons or meshes or shading, that the decision was, in order to be able to have maximum, FPS, or to be on a browser and not have a load up to where you have to download a client server. That's a barrier for entry. It's still a barrier for entry for PC games. Somebody who plays a console may not be interested in downloading a game for 4 hours, and they may not even be familiar with that. And that's been going on for, a decade or 2 decades now. And so imagine trying to introduce, someone who is Instagram first into a game world. You may want to do it on the browser. So I love the innovation, but when you have it in app or in world hyperlink, for me, that's a portal into the next world. And when I have 2 worlds that live on the browser, I can then blur those lines. And then that's where, when you look at what experiential is, and you look at utilizing these tools, that's where somebody who's an experience creator comes into place and creates this story arc that brings people in and out of these worlds. And there's some really interesting stuff that you can do with brands that are ready to jump in too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, NFTs basically are, at least in my humble opinion, mostly about branding, building a community. Like actually, what has been marketing and branding for the last 2 decades, basically, NFTs, and maybe even a metaverse, hopefully like interoperable, will become. Yeah. I would have one last question for you, Seth, if that's okay.
Totally.
If someone in the community wants to start our own play-to-earn or gaming project, what would you recommend they should do first, or should they consider at least?
One of the first things that I think is the most important driver, motivator in this space, because if it's not done because of interest and pure interest and that fascination, then I think that you may end up running into some challenges, and then you'll stop and you'll walk away. And I think that knowing why you're here and what you're looking to do is super important, because when we talk about a game or even an NFT and dropping a 10,000 generative, or starting a DAO, and I have lots of folks that are interested in a DAO or a 10,000 person generative, it isn't about it isn't about the money. And they do their spreadsheets and their calculations. Like, well, I think this guy made $30 million, 100, 210 Moonbirds, $210 million overnight. Yeah, but there's a commitment then, because it's a contract, and it like a bond that's made, and it says, if you invest here, then you will receive value later, and that investment is going to come back to you. And so it isn't that's napkin math for people. And so when somebody's looking at a game is very, very difficult. And there are ways to do things creatively. Do they all have to be token drop, sell land parcels? I mean, this is the G-Funk and Beanie Maxi meta hero or Pixel Vault, which is so far ahead of its time with how they've woven, their story and where they're going, and it's not even fully realized yet. And I imagine it's going to be coming out soon behind other side. It's not all about that. Dom Hoffman dropped Loot. There was no game, and it was the most innovative, mind-bending, thing for me to happen in this space in these early days, because it was community. It was true community game. It was a line of text. It was characters of text, like you'd see in Dungeons and Dragons when you roll your attributes. And for me, that was the dream of Web3. And then immediately behind that, Bloot came, and then I saw that blow up, and I was like, oh my God, it's going to be forever. And then it wasn't, and that became a part of the history for it as well. But I think that if you want to embark on a journey for yourself in this space, because you are close to it, and I know that, a lot of the folks that I talk to is because the more that you learn, you realize that you know more than some others, okay? And then you may know more than others will ever know, or ever wants to know about this space. And so that is super valuable. I have seen Nocteeth, and then I've seen Thomas with Lip Sweater, and I have talked to both of them before they had projects, and now they have thriving projects, and they're working deeply inside of the space. And I'm like, man, I got to catch up. And they're doing amazing work. And all of that is the same thing we've talked about, is that they're learning the challenges. They're hitting those stumbling blocks. They're pushing through that, those pieces. There's a Fox NFT project that they dropped as well. So those are like that. It's like boot camp for all of this. So I would say is that, know why and what you want to do. And then, I think that, your reads on people and situations should probably be the same as they were outside of this space. If you don't feel trust or that initial bond, then maybe it's right, and you should follow that. But I do think that you can find a global community or a global group of builders that you want to build with, and that if you have an idea and you are aligned, or there is alignment, that you could end up developing and creating inside of this space, and then I think that it's just it could be a rocket ship. I'm not saying that it will be for everything, but I do think that you will find a community that you can support if that's what you want to do, and you can continue to build on for years into the future. And the biggest thing about that, I think that you need to know why you want to be there, and if you want to be there for a long period of time with integrity, with trust, with empathy, with advocacy, and be inclusive. And it's an amazing time to be alive with everything that's going on. I've never been as close to the source as I am now, and I'm blown away by it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Basically, I think companies have never been that purpose-driven, basically, right? Where they actually try to bring value to their customers, community, whatever you want to call it, or actually now investors, And I think, as you just said it's going to be really interesting what happens in the next 2 or 5 years, because in crypto, like every week goes like one
Yeah,
or
it's
2 years.
no more. There's no more 5-year plans. The pandemic, if your 5-year plan is a 6-month plan. NASCAR had in the middle of the pandemic, NASCAR had their esports gaming on the live broadcast. Fantastic. And that would have never happened without the opportunity. So the pandemic is really was a tough time, but it also seems like this, like almost like scorched earth rebirth, to where now you can have fresh seedlings pop up, and everybody seems to be in the same mindset. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, basically forced many people to go outside of their comfort zone, right? And that made the difference. Hey, Seth, really thank you for that very interesting discussion. And I'm not sure if you have anything left to say. Otherwise, I would say thank you for viewing or listening to this podcast, and thank you, Seth, for being here. One or two last words, or
yeah, first of all, Kevin, thank you for asking me to share my perspective and my point of view. I'm humbled by it, as I said, to be asked, as I've been humbled by my journey in life, and I'm grateful for everything. So I'm grateful for you, and thank you for reaching out. I hope I was able to answer your questions. My mind moves into nooks and crannies in an interesting way. But I look forward to tuning in to your podcast as you develop. I think you're an amazing talent, and I look forward to seeing more from you.
Yeah, you too. Hey, thanks, Seth, and wish you a great week ahead.
Yeah, be good. Bye, everybody.
Bye.